Let's get straight into it. There was marinara sauce on my shirt when I ended our engagement. No, seriously. I wish this was one of those polished, dramatic moments you see in the movies, but no. I was standing under cheap string lights in someone's backyard, holding a paper plate of lukewarm spaghetti, trying to force a smile while a crowd of semi-strangers laughed at something my fiancée, Selene, had just said. I hadn't heard the joke, but I heard the aftermath. "She's right," one of her friends snorted. "You really are like her little assistant." More laughter, a few glances in my direction. One person even muttered, "Poor guy." And that's when I realized they weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at me. At the guy who carried her bag, double-checked her calendar, and texted reminders for her waxing appointments. The guy who planned a proposal with rose petals and a sunset, only to be met with, "Oh, is this it?" I didn't interrupt. I didn't shout. I didn't even flinch. I just walked over to the folding table, wiped my hands with a napkin that smelled faintly of sunscreen, and calmly said, "Does anyone want a free venue? September 3rd, non-refundable." There was silence, followed by nervous chuckles. She turned around, blinking as if I had just recited a grocery list in Latin. "What are you talking about?" "The wedding's off," I said. "Wait, Kurt, come on, you're joking." "No, but you were, just now, about me again." More silence. "I'll text my family tonight," I added. "I assume you'll want to keep the guest list. It was mostly your people anyway." And then I placed the ring, still in its little velvet box, on the plastic table next to a half-eaten cupcake and walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even look back. But don't get me wrong, that wasn't strength. That was numbness. Because what none of them knew, not her friends, not the guests, not even her, was that this wasn't just about a joke. This wasn't about some throwaway insult during a party. This was about what I had already found out. What I had been keeping to myself for 3 weeks. The things she didn't know I knew. The things I was never supposed to find. And if you think that moment was shocking, wait until you hear what led up to it. The walk home that night felt like someone had removed all the air from the world. I didn't drive. I had left my keys in my jacket, which I'd tossed on a chair before the party started. I just kept walking, past neon-lit bars, garbage cans tipped over on sidewalks, and a couple making out behind a food truck, as if the universe wasn't busy unraveling itself for someone else 2 blocks away. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I felt nothing, which honestly scared me more than rage ever could. The text started while I was still 4 blocks from my apartment. First from her, then her friends, then her cousin, who had hosted the party and apparently wasn't thrilled that I'd turned his soft housewarming into what he called a scene. One message read, "You humiliated her." Another said, "You could have just talked to her privately." But none of them knew what I knew. They hadn't seen the messages, the voice note, the group chat thread with her coworkers where I was referred to as Mr. Discount Husband. I had kept all of it quiet. 3 weeks earlier, I had gone to use her laptop to order us pizza. Her phone had died, mine was charging, and she told me to just use hers. The cards were saved. Harmless. Until I clicked Chrome and her messages popped open as if they'd been waiting for me. It wasn't a mistake or a one-time joke. There were dozens of them. "He's so polite, it's pathetic," one said. Another, "I swear he asks if he can hold my hand. I need a man before I forget what that feels like." There was even a bet. I didn't know the full context, but one of her colleagues joked, "Still time to cancel before September. You in?" And she responded with a laughing emoji and, "Not if I get the condo first." It was that one line that stuck with me. Not if I get the condo first. As if I were some kind of temporary ticket to something better. A key, a shortcut, a means to a very material end. And still, I didn't say anything. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm out or scream. I told myself, Maybe it was sarcasm. Maybe she was just venting. I clung to whatever scraps of dignity I could find, until she laughed about me at that party. And in that laugh, I heard it all. I saw everything for what it was. So, when I finally got back to my apartment, I didn't answer the calls. I opened my laptop, pulled up our wedding spreadsheet, and deleted the entire thing. Then I sat in the dark and stared at the ring box I had retrieved before leaving. Not because I wanted to give it to her again, but because, for some reason, I still couldn't throw it away. The next morning was strangely quiet, not in the peaceful, birds chirping, coffee steaming kind of way. I mean hollow, as if the world had turned the volume down on itself. I hadn't slept. I just sat there, replaying everything over and over, like some miserable editor stuck on a loop, wondering if I had overreacted, if maybe I should have let it go. But every time that doubt crept in, I thought of that message again. Not if I get the condo first. And suddenly, my chest would tighten, and I'd remember exactly why I left that party the way I did. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a text this time, a call from Aiden, one of my 2 remaining close friends. Aiden and I had been through college together. We'd built IKEA furniture in our first crappy apartment with butter knives. He wasn't just a friend. He was the guy who once drove 5 hours to help me after my car broke down in a town that didn't even have streetlights. I hadn't told him much about the party. I just sent him a short message that night. "It's over. I'll explain later." When I picked up, I expected concern. What I got was a sentence that shifted the earth under my feet. "Kurt, I need to tell you something, and I should have told you sooner." He sounded shaken, and that scared me more than anything. He went on to explain that 2 months ago, he saw Selene at a coffee shop with someone, a man, mid-30s, wearing a smartwatch and a suit that didn't match the weather. They weren't doing anything overt, no kissing, no holding hands, but there was something in her body language that made Aiden pause. The way she leaned in, the way she laughed too easily, the way she touched her hair. He assumed it was a work thing. But then he saw them again 2 weeks later, this time at a rooftop bar at night, sharing a plate of something, sitting too close for just coworkers. He had debated telling me, thought maybe he was reading into it. But after what happened at the party, and after the texts I told him about, he felt he couldn't stay quiet anymore. I didn't say much. My stomach was in knots. I wanted to be surprised, shocked maybe, but the truth is, I wasn't. Not really. I think I had known for a long time that something wasn't right. But it was easier to believe she just didn't love loudly, that maybe she was the way she was because of her upbringing, her past, her job, anything but the obvious. After I hung up, I sat there staring at nothing, my mouth dry, heart thudding in slow, heavy beats. I remembered the time she said she had client meetings late, the time she came home with a bag from a place we'd never shopped at, the random do not disturb calendar blocks on her shared planner that she always dismissed as me time. It all started connecting. But the final thread came just 1 hour later, in the form of a direct message from a name I didn't recognize, a woman who claims she used to work with Selene and who had screenshots to prove that Selene had been planning a lot more than just a wedding. The message came from someone named Veronica L. I didn't recognize the name, and at first I assumed it was spam, until I read the preview. "I know this is random, but I worked with Selene, and I think you deserve to see this." My stomach flipped. My hands hovered over the screen for a few seconds before I tapped it open. The first thing I saw was a screenshot of a group chat labeled Marketing Queens. Familiar names, some of Selene's coworkers. The messages started off harmless enough. Jokes about office snacks, a complaint about someone named Dana microwaving fish again. And then I saw it, a photo of me. I remembered that day. It was taken from behind while I stood in line at a farmer's market, holding a basket of organic lemons because she said store-bought ones tasted manufactured. The caption read,
Curtis in his natural habitat, Lemon Boy. Underneath, another message. I swear if I have to listen to him talk about air fryers again, I might actually elope with Max instead. Max. The name hit me like a cold slap. Max was the client she had met 3 times over wine and tablas. The one she insisted was just a business contact who was a little flirty but harmless. I had even offered to drive her to one of their meetings once. She said no, said she'd feel awkward with me there. Of course she did. I scrolled further. The worst part wasn't the sarcasm or the jokes at my expense. It was the planning, the way she wrote about our wedding as if it were a transactional goalpost. One message said, "Condo approval is easier if we're married, LOL. Just gotta make it to October and I'm set." Another, "I could live off his insurance for a year if I needed to. Not saying I would, but still." My vision blurred. I don't even remember setting the phone down. I just know I stood up and walked to the kitchen because I needed to hold on to something solid. I needed to feel the edge of the counter, the cold handle of the fridge, anything to remind myself that something in my life hadn't changed, hadn't betrayed me. Veronica messaged again, as if she knew I was still reading. I didn't want to get involved, but after what she did at that party, people talk. A few of us felt sick watching it unfold. You didn't deserve that, none of this. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know this woman. She had no reason to lie, no reason to help me. And yet here she was, sending me the kind of truth bombs that leave you blinking at a wall, wondering what your entire last year had actually meant. For the next hour, I did something I had never done before. I let myself feel angry. Not the soft, simmering kind I usually buried under sarcasm or awkward laughter. No, this was different. It was real. And as the pieces came together, the texts, the tone of her laughter at that party, the hidden calendar blocks, the jokes, the lies, something inside me hardened. I had canceled the wedding, yes, but now I realized I had done it without knowing the full story. And if what I'd seen was only the beginning, then what came next would be a reckoning. I didn't sleep again that night. I couldn't. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop playing scenes like a broken record. Her voice echoing through the party, the screenshots, that hideous emoji-laden group chat, the way people looked at me, some with pity, others with amusement, as if I were a punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. Around 5 a.m., when the sky was just starting to turn that weird purple-gray, I grabbed my keys and drove. No plan, no direction. I just needed movement. Silence had become unbearable. I ended up in front of her sister's apartment, Madison. Out of everyone in Selene's orbit, she was the only one who had ever treated me like an actual human being. She'd once told me, months ago, that I deserved someone who saw more in you than your usefulness. I hadn't known what to do with that comment back then. Now it rang like a warning I'd ignored.
I didn't even text first. I knocked, heart pounding. When she opened the door in a hoodie and pajama pants, her eyes went wide as if she'd seen a ghost. "Curtis," she whispered, "you okay?" I didn't know how to answer that, so I just said, "Can we talk?" She made coffee without saying much, and I sat at her tiny kitchen table as if I didn't know what planet I was on. When I finally told her everything, from the group chat to Veronica to Aidan spotting Selene with another man, Madison didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp or act shocked. She just stared into her mug as if it had answers. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then, in a quiet, almost ashamed voice, she said, "I didn't know about the messages, but I knew about Max." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. She told me it was just harmless flirting. Madison went on. She said he made her feel seen and that she'd never act on it. I warned her. I told her she was playing with fire. She laughed, said she had it under control. I should have pushed harder. I'm so sorry. I just sat there, gripping the edge of the table until my fingers went numb.
Then she added something I wasn't prepared for. "Curtis, she never thought you'd leave." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "She said it all the time, that you were too safe to ever walk away, that you'd always try to fix things, that she could do whatever and you'd still be there at the end of it, with flowers and an apology." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing that didn't feel like crying. "You weren't weak," Madison said, looking at me. "You were loyal. She just twisted that into something else." I nodded, but inside, I was unraveling. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation. I had been her safety net, her backup plan, the guy who could be mocked, manipulated, and still be counted on to stay. But now, I wasn't staying. As I walked out of Madison's apartment, she stopped me. "Curtis, you should see what she posted this morning." And when I opened my phone, I couldn't believe it. Selene had gone public and twisted the entire narrative into something so delusional, it made my blood run cold. There it was, a full-blown Instagram post, already climbing toward 300 likes in less than an hour. A close-up photo of her sitting on a bench near the lake where we used to walk, head tilted just enough to look fragile. The caption started with, "Sometimes people walk away without warning. No closure, no explanation, just silence, and you're left wondering what you did wrong." I blinked. My throat tightened as I read through the comments. Her friends, the same ones who laughed at her party jokes, were flooding the post with hearts and "you deserve betters" and "men are so emotionally immature." One even wrote, "I always knew he wasn't man enough for you." Another chimed in, "You'll find someone who appreciates your heart." I sat there stunned. This wasn't passive-aggressive. This was a calculated smear campaign, weaponized for sympathy. She knew what she was doing, playing the victim before I even had a chance to speak.
But what hit hardest wasn't the comments. It was the number of mutual friends who had liked the post without question. No one texted me. No one asked what had happened. No one wondered why I canceled the wedding and disappeared. They just clicked like and moved on, as if she had written a eulogy instead of rewriting the truth. I felt my chest burning, not just from betrayal, but from how easy it was for people to believe it. How quickly the quiet guy with the nervous laugh and the too soft heart became the villain. I paced my apartment, heart racing, teeth clenched. For a second, I actually wondered if I should just let her have the narrative, keep it clean, walk away quietly. But then I remembered the screenshots, the texts, the bet with her coworkers, the way she laughed while mocking me in front of strangers. I remembered Madison's face, how she looked genuinely ashamed of her sister. And I remembered Veronica, someone I'd never even met, who went out of her way to send me the truth. These women didn't owe me anything, but they saw what I didn't, that my silence would let her win. So I made a decision. I didn't go nuclear. I didn't expose everything in one big post. That would make me look vindictive. No, I started small. A single story post. Black background, white text. Simple. Since people are asking, here's some closure. I called off the wedding because it turns out I wasn't the only one she was emotionally committed to. I left it at that. No names, no photos, no receipts yet, but enough to shift the conversation. Enough to get people to pause. Within minutes, I got my first message, then a second, then 5. Some from mutual friends, some from people I barely knew. All of them asking, wait, what actually happened? And then came the one I didn't expect, a DM from Max himself. No words, just a phone number and the message, "We need to talk." It took me 3 hours to work up the nerve to call Max. His message sat in my inbox like a live wire. The man who was supposed to be just a client, who had shown up in messages, rooftop sightings, and group chat jokes, now wanted to talk. My palms were sweaty before I even tapped the number. I didn't know what I was walking into. Was this a taunt, an apology, a confession, or something worse? When he picked up, he didn't say hello. He just said,
I didn't know she was engaged. Those words dropped like a cinder block into my stomach. Max's voice was calm but tense, like someone walking a tightrope between guilt and anger. He told me they met at a networking event 6 months ago. She introduced herself as single, said she was recently out of something, but not looking for anything complicated. He believed her. Why wouldn't he? There was no ring, no mention of me, just stories about how she was trying to rediscover herself. He told me they'd met up 6 or 7 times. Coffee at first, then drinks, then things escalated. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. I didn't need to. The image was already sharp in my head.
What hit me wasn't just the betrayal. It was how calculated she had been, how she kept both lives separate, how she planned a wedding while simultaneously feeding another man a completely different narrative. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. She invited me to the engagement party. I nearly dropped the phone. She said it was just a friends thing and that I should come later in the evening, that I'd meet some of her crew. She made it sound casual, but now I realize she wanted me there. Maybe as backup, or maybe just for the thrill. I couldn't speak. I felt physically sick. He paused. When your story post went up, I saw it. Someone I follow reposted it. I put 2 and 2 together. Curtis, man, I'm sorry. I had no idea. We hung up shortly after. I thanked him, don't ask me why, and sat there in silence again. But this time, the silence was different. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This wasn't confusion. It was clarity. I finally saw her for who she was, not who I tried to believe she could be. And more importantly, I saw me, the version of me who tolerated being second, the one who thought loyalty would somehow earn love. That version was gone. Within the hour, I started packaging everything, the screenshots, the texts, the messages from Veronica and Max, into one folder. I wasn't going to post it online. That wasn't the plan. But I needed it ready because she was still out there telling her version, and I wasn't going to let her bury the truth beneath hashtags and fake tears. But before I could even decide what to do with the folder, something unexpected happened. A message came in from Selene herself. 4 words: "We need to talk." She wanted to meet in person. I agreed, but only in a public place, neutral territory. No drama, no furniture to throw or doors to slam. We met at a quiet coffee shop on a weekday afternoon. Far from the curated chaos of her Instagram feed, she showed up wearing soft makeup and the same sad expression she'd used online. The "how could you" look that somehow made her the victim of her own mess. I didn't speak first. I waited. She sat down slowly, then leaned forward and whispered, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I just blanked. That was it. That was her opener. For the next 10 minutes, she gave me what I can only describe as a carefully rehearsed half-apology. She was sorry I got hurt, sorry I found out that way, sorry I had to be embarrassed. Not sorry for what she did, only it was messy. She danced around the truth as if it were a bonfire she didn't want to get burned by. But then she made a mistake. She asked, "Can we keep this quiet? Just say it didn't work out." And that's when something clicked inside me. Not rage, not sadness, just finality. I looked her in the eye and said, "No. You mocked me publicly. You betrayed me privately. And now you want to quietly save face? That chapter's closed. I'm done playing the silent character in your story." She stared at me for a long time, lips parted slightly as if she were searching for the next move. But there wasn't one. I stood up, left enough cash on the table to cover her drink, and walked out. The sun hit my face like I hadn't felt it in weeks. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt free. The wedding's off. The ring is sold. I used part of that money to book a trip, not to escape, but to start something new. I've been reconnecting with people I lost touch with, relearning how to enjoy silence without guilt, and I've even started journaling again, not out of pain, but out of peace. Selene can post whatever she wants,
tell whatever version she needs to believe. But I know my truth now. And more importantly, I finally chose me. Thanks for sticking with me through this entire story. I hope it reminded someone out there that walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the first step toward reclaiming who you really are.